The warning lights flashed across the observation deck of Space Station Delta, bathing Tom Walker's tired face in red. He squinted through the reinforced window, spotting what looked like a small escape pod tumbling through space. The pod's hull was scorched black, bearing marks of weapons fire. "Control, this is Research Lab 7. Tom said into his communicator. "I'm tracking an unknown object on approach vector." He waited for a response, but only static answered. The station's night shift was always understaffed, and today seemed no different. The pod drifted closer, and Tom's scientific curiosity got the better of him. He hurried to the emergency airlock control panel, his footsteps echoing through the empty corridor. The station's artificial gravity felt heavier than usual as adrenaline coursed through his body. Starting emergency retrieval, he muttered to himself, fingers flying across the control panel. The station's mechanical arms extended smoothly, grasping the damaged pod and pulling it toward the airlock. Tom's heart raced as he watched the pod's surface up close through the cameras. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen before. The airlock cycled, and Tom approached the pod with a handheld scanner. The readings made him freeze. "That can't be right," he whispered. The biosignatures matched those of a night stalker, the most feared predatory species in known space. A low growl emanated from within the pod, followed by a sound of pain. Tom's hand hovered over the emergency alarm. Every protocol, every regulation, every story he'd heard demanded he alert security immediately. Night stalkers were considered too dangerous to approach. They were apex predators that had terrorized space lanes for centuries. But something felt wrong about this situation. The pod's damage suggested the Night Stalker was fleeing from something. And that sound, it wasn't aggressive. It was hurt. Tom made a decision that would change his life forever. He pulled out his medical scanner instead of hitting the alarm. The pod's hatch was simple enough to figure out. As it hissed open, Tom held his breath. In the dim light, he saw a mass of midnight black scales and powerful limbs. The Night Stalker was larger than he expected, easily 7 feet long, with a sleek, almost reptilian build. Its head bore a crown of sensory spines, and its eyes, all 4 of them, glowed with a soft blue light. One of its legs was badly injured, explaining the pain noises. The Night Stalker's head snapped up as the hatch opened fully, its eyes focusing on Tom with startling intelligence. Tom raised his empty hand slowly. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, knowing the creature probably couldn't understand him. "You're injured. I can help." The Night Stalker's sensory spines twitched. It made a series of clicking sounds, then winced as it tried to move its injured leg. To Tom's surprise, it didn't attack. Instead, it watched him with what seemed like curiosity. Time seemed to stretch as human and predator studied each other. Tom slowly reached for his medical kit, telegraphing his movements. The Night Stalker's eyes tracked his hands, but made no aggressive moves. "This will help with the pain," Tom said, holding up an antibiotic spray. He pointed to the injury, then the spray, trying to communicate his intentions. The Night Stalker's spines rippled in what seemed like understanding. As Tom carefully approached, he noticed details that contradicted everything he'd been taught about these creatures. The Night Stalker's movements were precise, calculated, not the mindless aggression he'd expected. Its eyes held awareness, intelligence, and something that looked remarkably like hope. Just as he was about to apply the spray, his communicator crackled to life. "Lab 7, this is Control. Did you report an unknown object?" Tom looked at the injured creature before him, seeing not the galaxy's most feared predator, but a living being in need of help. He made his choice. "Negative, Control," he replied steadily. "Just some debris. I'll log it in the morning report." The Night Stalker's spines rippled again, and Tom could have sworn he saw gratitude in those glowing blue eyes. As he began treating the injury, he knew he was breaking every rule in the book. But something told him this was the beginning of something extraordinary. Tom's private lab had never felt smaller than it did, with a 7-foot Night Stalker taking up most of the floor space. He had managed to move the creature from the escape pod during the quiet night shift, using service corridors to avoid the station's security cameras. The Night Stalker lay on a makeshift bed of research blankets, its injured leg wrapped in healing bandages. Tom watched as it studied the room with all four eyes, taking in every detail of the lab equipment. Its behavior continued to amaze him. There was clear intelligence in the way it examined things. "You need a name," Tom said, checking the bandages. "I can't keep calling you the Night Stalker in my head." The creature's head tilted at his voice, its sensory spines moving in an almost rhythmic pattern. When it moved quickly, Tom noticed how smoothly it glided across the floor. "How about Swift?" he suggested. The Night Stalker's spines perked up, and it made a soft clicking sound that seemed positive. "Swift it is, then." The lab door chimed suddenly, making them both freeze. "Tom, you in there?" It was Bill, another researcher. "Just a minute," Tom called out, his heart racing. He pointed to a storage closet, and Swift understood immediately, sliding inside with remarkable quietness despite its size. Tom opened the lab door to find Bill holding a datapad. "Did you hear the news? They spotted a Night Stalker ship in this sector last week. Station security is on high alert." "Really?" Tom tried to keep his voice steady. "That's concerning." Bill nodded eagerly. "The trading ships are terrified. You know what they say about Night Stalkers. They hunt anything that moves. No mercy, no reasoning with them. Just killing machines." From the corner of his eye, Tom saw the storage closet door shift slightly. "Actually," Tom said carefully, "have you ever met anyone who's really encountered a Night Stalker? Maybe they're not as bad as the stories say." Bill laughed. "Don't go soft, Tom. They're apex predators. It's in their nature to hunt and kill. Even the Galactic Council warns against any contact with them." He handed over the datapad. "Here's the security bulletin. Read it yourself." After Bill left, Swift emerged from the closet. The Night Stalker's spines drooped slightly, and Tom realized it had understood enough to know they were talking about its species. "Don't worry about Bill," Tom said. "He just believes the stories he's heard." He looked at the datapad and frowned. The bulletin mentioned increased Night Stalker activity, but something felt off about the report. Swift made a series of complex clicks and growls, clearly trying to communicate. Tom wished he could understand. He walked to his workbench and pulled out an old universal translator he'd been tinkering with. "This might help," he said, showing the device to Swift. "It's not perfect, but maybe we can modify it." To his surprise, Swift's eyes lit up with interest. The Night Stalker reached out carefully with one clawed hand and pointed to specific parts of the translator. Tom spent the next few hours working on the device, with Swift making clicking sounds and gestures to guide certain adjustments. The creature's understanding of the technology was remarkable. As they worked, Tom heard other researchers walking past his lab, talking about the Night Stalker warning. Each time, Swift would go perfectly still, listening. But Tom noticed something interesting. There was no aggression in Swift's posture, only caution and what looked like sadness. "Whatever the stories say," Tom said quietly, adjusting a wire in the translator, "I don't believe you're just a killing machine. You're trying to tell us something, aren't you?" Swift's eyes met his, and the Night Stalker slowly nodded, a very human gesture that made Tom sit back in surprise. The creature had been learning from him, just as he had been learning from it. A soft alarm beeped on Tom's watch. Morning shift would start soon, bringing more people to this section of the station. He needed to be more careful now. "We'll figure this out," he promised Swift, who had already started moving back to the storage closet. Together. As Tom prepared for his regular shift, he realized he had crossed a line. He wasn't just hiding an injured creature anymore. He was actively working to communicate with a species everyone feared. If he was caught, it would mean the end of his career, probably worse. But watching Swift settle down in the closet, those intelligent blue eyes full of trust, Tom knew he couldn't stop now. He had to know the truth about the Night Stalkers, no matter the cost. 3 days of secret work on the translator had led to this moment. Tom held the modified device in his hands, watching as Swift studied it with intense focus. The Night Stalker's lay had healed remarkably fast, but it showed no signs of wanting to leave the lab. "Here goes nothing," Tom said, turning on the translator. It hummed to life, lights blinking across its surface. Swift's sensory spines twitched with interest. The Night Stalker made a series of clicks and growls. The translator crackled, then produced broken words. "Danger, coming, must warn." Tom's eyes widened. It works. Not perfectly, but it works. He adjusted some settings. "Try again, Swift. What are you trying to warn us about?" Swift's next series of sounds came through clearer. "My kind, not what you think. We were made this way. Changed. Changed. You mean someone altered your species?" Tom leaned forward, fascinated. The translator conveyed Swift's response. "Military. They take eggs, make us weapons. Some of us escape. Most die trying." Tom sat back, stunned. The fearsome reputation of Night Stalkers, their apparent violent nature, it wasn't natural at all. They were victims of genetic manipulation. "The military ships following you," Tom began. "Want us back?" Swift's translated voice came through stronger now. "Control us. Make us fight. Kill." The Night Stalker's spines drooped. "We do not want to hurt. Want to learn. To understand." Tom remembered how Swift had helped him modify the translator, showing unexpected knowledge of technology. "Your species is naturally intelligent, isn't it? Not just predators." "Yes. Before changes, we were explorers, studied stars, made great machines." Swift moved to Tom's workbench, pointing at various tools with a clawed hand. The translator converted more clicks. "This familiar, like tools we once made." Their conversation was interrupted by heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. Swift quickly moved to the now familiar hiding spot, but not before Tom saw a new expression in those blue eyes. Hope. When the footsteps passed, Tom pulled out his datapad and showed Swift the station's star charts. The Night Stalker's reaction was immediate and excited. Swift began pointing at specific systems, and the translator worked overtime. "Home. Here," Swift indicated a star system. "Before military came. Many libraries. Much knowledge." Another series of clicks. "Now all gone. They destroy our history, make us forget what we were." Tom thought about every story he heard about Night Stalkers, how they were always portrayed as mindless killers. It had all been propaganda, hiding the terrible truth. "How many others like you are there?" Tom asked. "Other Night Stalkers who've escaped. Small groups. Hiding. Scared." Swift's translated voice carried sadness. "Military finds most. Makes them fight again." A pause then. "You different, Tom. Not afraid. Try to understand." Tom smiled. "Humans have a habit of surprising people. We're curious by nature." He hesitated, then added, "And we don't like seeing others being forced to be something they're not." Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by a station-wide announcement. "Attention all personnel. Long-range sensors detect approaching military vessels. All sections prepare for inspection." This is not a drill. Swift's spines went rigid. The translator caught a burst of urgent clicks. "They come for me. Must leave. You in danger helping me." But Tom was already shaking his head. "No. We've got proof now." He held up the translator. "We can show everyone the truth about your species. Make them understand." "Dangerous," Swift's translation warned. "Military has power. Many allies." "Yes," Tom agreed, "but they've never dealt with humans before." He began gathering data files and recording devices. "We humans have another trait besides curiosity. We really don't like bullies." Swift's spines moved in what Tom had learned was their version of a laugh. The translator caught the words. Perhaps that why we understand each other. Both explorer species. Both fight when must. Tom looked at his friend. And yes, he realized that's what Swift had become, and saw the same determination he felt. Together, they had bridged the gap between species that everyone thought impossible. Now they would have to prove it to the rest of the galaxy. Let's give them something they don't expect, Tom said, starting to record their conversation. The truth. Swift's eyes glowed brighter, and the translator spoke words that would soon change everything. Yes, time to remember what we were. Show Galaxy what we can be. The station's security team burst into Tom's lab with weapons drawn, led by Chief Rogers himself. They stopped short at the sight before them. Tom Walker, calmly sitting at his workbench with a full-grown Night Stalker beside him. "Step away from the creature, Walker," Rogers shouted, his laser rifle aimed at Swift. "I won't do that," Tom replied steadily. "And Swift isn't a creature. He's a refugee seeking asylum." The security team exchanged confused looks. Swift remained perfectly still, sensory spines flat in a non-threatening position they had practiced. The translator at Tom's desk quietly hummed. "Have you lost your mind?" Rogers demanded. "That's a Night Stalker, the most dangerous predator in known space." Behind Rogers, other station personnel gathered at the lab's entrance. Tom spotted Bill among them, looking horrified. Several alien residents of the station pushed forward, their voices rising in panic. "Kill it immediately," shouted a blue-skinned merchant. "They cannot be reasoned with." "It will slaughter us all," cried another. Swift's translator clicked to life. "No harm intended. Ask only for chance to speak." The sound of the translator made everyone freeze. Rogers' rifle wavered slightly. Did that thing just talk?" "Yes," Tom said firmly. "Swift can communicate, think, and reason just like any of us. Better than some, I'd say." He stood slowly. "Everything we think we know about Night Stalkers is wrong. They're not natural killers. They were made into weapons against their will." "Lies," hissed one of the alien observers. "Everyone knows Night Stalkers are born killers." Swift moved forward slightly, causing the security team to tense. But the Night Stalker simply activated a small projector on Tom's desk. Images appeared in the air. Star charts, ancient ruins, and technical diagrams. The translator conveyed Swift's words. "My people were builders, explorers, created great things. Then military came, changed us, made us forget. The images shifted to show genetic sequences, forced to fight. Many died resisting. Some escaped, like me." Tom watched the security team's faces as they processed this information. Even Rogers looked uncertain now. "It's a trick," someone in the crowd said, but with less conviction. "Is it?" Tom challenged. He pulled up the station's own scanner data. "Look at Swift's brain activity patterns. They match those of known sentient species. Look at the genetic markers showing artificial manipulation. The evidence is right here." A new voice cut through the tension. "I've seen those markers before." Dr. Reed, the station's chief scientist, pushed through the crowd. She studied the floating data with growing excitement. "These are military-grade genetic modifications, extremely advanced. The kind that could turn a peaceful species into weapons," Tom finished. "That's what they did to the Night Stalkers. And now they're coming here to take Swift back." "The military vessels," Rogers said slowly. "They're not here for an inspection." "No," Swift's translator crackled. "Come to recapture. Return me to fighting pits. Make me kill again." The Night Stalker's spines drooped. "Please, do not want to be weapon anymore." Dr. Reed turned to Rogers. "These readings are impossible to fake, Chief. And look at its behavior. Completely contrary to every report we have about Night Stalkers in the wild." The security team's weapons gradually lowered as the truth sank in. The crowd at the door murmured, fear slowly giving way to curiosity. "If what you're saying is true," Rogers said carefully, Harboring you could bring serious trouble to this station. The military doesn't like losing its assets. Tom stepped forward. Then let's make it official. Swift is requesting political asylum under Galactic Convention Article 7, protection of sentient beings from forced military service. Dr. Reed nodded excitedly. Yes, if we can prove the Night Stalkers are being illegally modified and enslaved. Which we can, Tom added, patting the data files. Swift's translator spoke again. Others like me. Hiding. Afraid. Need voice. Need help. The Night Stalker looked at each person in the room. Need chance to show truth. Rogers holstered his weapon with a sigh. Walker, you do realize you've just dragged this entire station into what might be the biggest political crisis of the decade. Tom looked at Swift, seeing not the galaxy's deadliest predator, but a friend who trusted him enough to risk everything for the truth. Yes, he said, and we're just getting started. The gathered crowd watched in amazement as Swift extended a clawed hand to Tom, mimicking the human gesture of partnership. As Tom took it, he knew they had just changed everything. Not just for themselves, but for two species who never should have been enemies in the first place. Red alert sirens blared throughout Space Station Delta. On the main command deck, Tom watched 3 military cruisers appear on the long-range scanners. Swift stood beside him, no longer hiding, while station personnel worked at their stations with nervous energy. Military vessels holding position at outer marker, announced the sensor operator. They're hailing us. Chief Rogers nodded to the communications officer. Put them through. A stern-faced military commander appeared on the main screen. His uniform bore the insignia of the Special Weapons Division. This is Commander Pierce of the GSV Enforcer. You are harboring a dangerous escaped military asset. Surrender the Night Stalker immediately. Tom felt Swift tense beside him. The translator picked up quiet clicks. Pierce. He ran breeding program. Made us kill each other. Before Rogers could respond, Tom stepped forward. The being you're referring to has requested political asylum. Under galactic law, we're processing that request. Pierce's face darkened. That creature is military property. It has no rights to request anything. Wrong. Dr. Reed interrupted, moving to stand beside Tom. She projected Swift's genetic data onto a second screen. We have proof of illegal genetic manipulation. Transformation of a sentient species into weapons is a violation of at least 15 galactic conventions. You're meddling in classified military affairs, Pierce warned. This station has 1 hour to surrender the Night Stalker, or we will begin docking procedures by force. The screen went dark. Swift's translator crackled. More ships coming. Can sense them. Pierce never works alone. Rogers checked the long-range sensors. Confirmed. 2 more cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace. He turned to Tom. We're outgunned, Walker. The station's shields won't hold against 5 military cruisers. Then we need to move faster, Tom said. He activated his data pad, showing a message he prepared. I've compiled all our evidence, Swift's genetic scans, historical records, everything. One broadcast to the Galactic News Network, and everyone will know what they did to the Night Stalkers. Dr. Reed frowned. The military will block any transmissions. Not if we use multiple channels, Tom replied. He looked at Swift. Remember those communication codes you showed me, from your people's old networks? Swift's spines rippled with understanding. The translator conveyed, yes. Military never found all channels. Can broadcast through hidden frequencies. Suddenly, the station shuddered. They're testing our shields, Rogers reported. 50 minutes until they fail. Tom turned to Dr. Reed. How many research stations can you contact? People who'll understand the genetic data. Dozens, she replied, already typing. The scientific community will be outraged when they see this. Good. Rogers, can you reach other security outposts? Once they know military ships are threatening a civilian station. Rogers nodded grimly. Already on it. Nobody likes the idea of military forces attacking civilians. Swift moved to a console, claws flying over the controls with surprising precision. The translator spoke, sending calls to hidden places, where others like me hide. Time to stop hiding. The station rocked again, harder this time. Pierce's voice boomed over the speakers. This is your final warning. Surrender the asset. Tom looked at the faces around him. Humans and aliens working together, all risking everything to protect someone they'd been taught to fear. He pressed the broadcast button on his pad. No, Commander, he replied firmly. This is yours. Multiple signals burst from the station, shooting through channels old and new. Swift's hidden frequencies carried the truth to distant stars. Dr. Reed's scientific data raced to research stations across the galaxy. Roger's security alerts lit up outpost after outpost. Pierce's enraged voice filled the command deck. What have you done? Shown everyone who the real monsters are, Tom answered. Check your long-range sensors, Commander. You might want to count the ships heading this way. The military cruiser's sensors lit up as vessels began appearing at the edge of the system. Research ships, security cruisers, and sleek vessels of unknown design. Swift's hidden kin emerging at last. You'll regret this, Pierce snarled, but there was fear in his voice now. Tom felt Swift's presence beside him, both of them watching as more allies arrived every minute. The translator carried Swift's words clearly. No, Pierce. You regret. You tried to make us forget who we were, but we remember now. The command deck crew cheered as the military cruisers began backing away. Tom smiled, knowing this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. The truth was out, and no force in the galaxy could cage it again. Swift's translator spoke one last time. Thank you, friend, for helping us remember how to be free. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from 100 worlds packed the massive hall, all eyes fixed on the unusual pair at the speaker's podium, a human scientist and a Night Stalker standing side by side. Tom adjusted the translator as Swift began to speak. The chamber fell silent, many hearing a Night Stalker's translated voice for the first time. Show them. Swift's words echoed through the hall. Show what they did to us. Tom activated the main display. Images filled the air. Laboratories where Night Stalker eggs were modified, training pits where they were forced to fight, and genetic data showing the military's alterations. Before you call us monsters, the translator conveyed Swift's words. See who made us this way. Security footage played next, showing Commander Pierce's scientists performing cruel experiments. Many council members turned away, unable to watch. Others shouted in anger. 3 weeks ago, Tom addressed the council. This evidence was broadcast across the galaxy. Since then, 47 more Night Stalkers have sought asylum at human stations. Each one carries the same genetic modifications. Each one has the same story. A new figure approached the podium, Dr. Reed, now leading the investigation into Night Stalker genetics. The changes made to their species were extensive, she explained. Enhanced aggression, suppressed higher thinking, forced obedience to military commands. But underneath it all, their original nature remained. The display showed new images, Night Stalkers in human research labs, working with scientists. Swift's kin helping to repair ships, solving complex equations, sharing their ancient knowledge of the stars. They were never meant to be weapons, Tom continued. They were explorers, builders, scholars. The military tried to erase that history, but they failed. The council chamber buzzed with discussion. Swift's translator picked up again. More of us remember every day. More break free. Need safe places. Need chance to be ourselves again. An elderly council member stood. And what guarantee do we have that these memories won't fade, that they won't revert to violent behavior? Tom smiled. Actually, I'd like to show you something else. He switched the display to a live feed from Earth's primary research station. It showed young Night Stalkers and human children together in a classroom, learning side by side. This is the first human Night Stalker cultural exchange program, Tom explained. Started just 2 weeks ago. Those children are learning mathematics from a Night Stalker teacher. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The feed showed a Night Stalker carefully helping a human child with a problem. Its movements gentle and patient. Impossible, someone muttered. No, Swift's translator spoke clearly. This is who we always were, who we can be again, if given chance. More evidence followed. Records of Pierce's arrest, testimonies from other military scientists who'd come forward, and data showing the success of human Night Stalker cooperation. We're not asking you to forget the past, Tom said to the council. We're asking you to see the future. The Night Stalkers were victims of the worst kind of exploitation. Now they need our help to reclaim their identity. Dr. Reed stepped forward again. We've already begun the process of reversing the aggressive genetic modifications, but more importantly, we're helping them rebuild their culture, their history, their way of life. Swift's translator carried strong words. We do not want revenge. Want to build. Want to explore. Want to share knowledge. Like ancestors did. The council chamber grew quiet as Swift moved to the display controls. With careful precision, the Night Stalker brought up ancient star charts, technical diagrams, and mathematical formulas, all recovered from hidden archives. This is our gift, Swift's words echoed. Knowledge kept safe, waiting for day we could share again. Tom watched the council members' faces change as they studied the advanced calculations and astronomical data. The fear in their eyes was being replaced by wonder. The military tried to turn them into weapons, Tom concluded. Instead, they've become our greatest teachers, all because someone finally looked past the fear and saw them for what they really are, not monsters, but friends we never knew we had. The first council member to stand was, surprisingly, from a world that had long feared Night Stalkers. I moved to grant protected status to all Night Stalkers, he announced, and to establish permanent sanctuary zones in human space. As more members stood to second the motion, Tom felt Swift's presence beside him, both of them watching history change. The translator quietly caught Swift's words. Today, we are free to remember. Tomorrow, we help others remember too. 1 year later, the observation deck of New Horizons Station buzzed with excitement. Tom stood near the massive windows, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried students for the first official human Night Stalker Academy. Swift, now the Academy's lead instructor, moved to Tom's side. The translator they'd built together had been upgraded, but they rarely needed it now. A year of working together had taught them to understand each other's ways. Remember when you first found me in that escape pod? Swift's translator hummed. You were only human, not afraid. Tom smiled. Now look at us. 200 new students arriving today. Both human and Night Stalker. The docking bay below them was busy with activity. Young Night Stalkers moved confidently among humans, their sensory spines bright with excitement. Human children watched in wonder as older Night Stalkers demonstrated anti-gravity technology recovered from their ancient archives. First class starts tomorrow, Swift said. We'll teach stars first. Show how ancestors mapped galaxy. Dr. Reed approached them, carrying new data readings. The genetic restoration program is exceeding all expectations, she reported happily. Each new generation of Night Stalkers is born free of military modifications. They're returning to their natural state. Through the window, they watched a Night Stalker engineer teaching a group of human technicians about advanced propulsion systems. In another corner, human doctors worked with Night Stalker healers, combining their knowledge of medicine. Council report came today, Tom mentioned. 5 more worlds have requested Night Stalker science advisors. They're particularly interested in your species' understanding of dark matter. Swift's spines rippled with pride. Knowledge was never lost. Just waiting. Like us, waiting to be free again. A small commotion drew their attention. A young human girl had tripped, but before she could fall, A Night Stalker student caught her gently. Instead of fear, the girl smiled and thanked her new friend. Both of them hurried off together, laughing. That, Tom said quietly. That's what makes all the struggle worth it. The station's main screen activated, showing news from across the galaxy. Night Stalkers working as teachers on distant worlds. Human Night Stalker research teams making breakthrough discoveries. Ships crewed by both species exploring uncharted space together. Yesterday, Swift's translator spoke. Received message from hidden archive. More ancient knowledge found. Star maps. Technology plans. Teaching methods. Your people kept their history safer than anyone knew, Tom remarked. Had to. Military thought they erased all. Never found deepest archives. Swift moved closer to the window. Now we teach again. Share everything. Make galaxy better place. Below them, the first-class gathering was beginning. Humans and Night Stalkers filled the main hall, taking seats together without fear or hesitation. Young ones of both species played games in the corners while their parents talked nearby. Remember what Bill used to say about Night Stalkers? Tom asked. That you were just killing machines. Bill now takes flying lessons from Night Stalker pilot, Swift replied with a clicking laugh. Says we best teachers he ever had. Dr. Reed checked her datapad. The latest surveys show over 90% positive response to Night Stalker integration. People are calling it the greatest cultural exchange in galactic history. Tom watched as more ships arrived, bringing more students, more chances for understanding. All because one Night Stalker was brave enough to trust, and one human was curious enough to listen. Swift's spines moved in a pattern Tom now recognized as deep emotion. The translator caught soft words. You saw truth when others saw monster. Gave us chance to remember who we were, who we could be. Together, they looked out at the stars. The same stars Swift's ancestors had mapped. The same stars that would guide the next generation of explorers, human and Night Stalker alike. So, Tom asked with a smile, ready to teach them how to change the galaxy. Swift's translator carried the final words with perfect clarity. Already changing galaxy, friend. One student at a time. One truth at a time. One memory at a time. Together. Below them, the first class of the Human Night Stalker Academy began to assemble, carrying with them the promise of a future where understanding conquered fear and friendship proved stronger than any weapon ever created. The end.